Hi, church. Oh, there it is. How we doing? Hey, welcome to Central. I'm so glad you all are here. My name is Rachel Dotzler. I'm the lead student pastor here at Central. And if you're new, welcome. Whether you are joining us at Tempe, Mesa, Queen Creek, Glendale, here in Gilbert, we're just so glad that you are here. Well, you've come to an exciting time at Central because we are in summer mode, which means for me personally and many others, we are in full-blown camp season. So we just had our first of 4 camps this last week. We had kids camp, where our 3-year-olds to 3rd grade got to come to camp. We had over 500 kids at 4 out of 5 of our campuses this last week. We had over 350 volunteers. So if that was you, thank you so much for showing up for our kids this last week. Yeah, you can clap for them. Go ahead. Because we can't do camp without our volunteers, so thank you. My 5-year-old got to go to kids camp for the first time this last week, and she had a blast. Literally the last day of camp, which was Wednesday, we were, I think it was on the way there, she's like, Mom, can this be every single night? Can we do kids camp? And I was like, you know what? I'll talk to our lead kids pastor about that and see if she can make that happen for us. She won't be thrilled. But we have a great kids ministry around here, and I'm super grateful for what they do. And then in 2 weeks, actually 2 weeks today, we take off with our high school students for high school camp, which we're so excited. Me and our student team, between our junior high and high school camp, where we get to take over 600 students and leaders to California, and we're super excited about that. But I do have to tell you that every year that I do camp, I lose years off of my life. So my lifespan gets shorter and shorter as I do years at camp because it's a lot, but all for the kingdom, right? And it's, we truly believe summer changes everything. And it's a miracle that all of our kids come back in one piece. It is. So hopefully we'll keep on that track. But speaking of miracles, we're in a series called Miracles. We kicked it off last week. We're going to be sitting in it all summer. And Sean picked up the first message last week and talked about the miracle of Jesus turning water into wine. And I had a lot of thoughts on that because I would have much preferred to teach on that fun miracle than what we're going to talk about today, because today is going to be really tough. We're going to ask a lot of hard questions that don't really have great answers, that don't really have answers, period. But here we are. Miracles are really tough, not because I don't think God can do miracles, but because I don't know why miracles happen for some people and don't for others. What's the point in praying if God is going to do what he's going to do? Have you ever thought that? Why do I pray if God is just gonna do what he's gonna do? I think miracles mistakenly get seen as only big things, like healing from crazy medical diagnosis, or pregnancy miracles, or someone that has been kept safe from a really bad car accident, right? We see these big things, these big miracles, but how often do little miracles get overlooked? And does that mean that everything is spiritual, right? Have you ever gone into a parking lot and you're looking for a parking spot because you're running late, and just in your mind is just God, please, just one spot open up. And then bam, it happens, and you're heck yeah, I was at the right time, the right place, this is on me. And you totally forgot that you may have just asked God for this tiny miracle for a parking spot. Did he get any of the glory in that? Or you ran into someone that you haven't seen in so long. Did you thank God for maybe that small miracle? Or students in the room? Your parents let you stay out late past curfew? You thanking God for that little miracle? Or you're that's a miracle that will never happen in my household, which might be true. Does God get glory in the big and small miracles? More importantly, where's God when my prayers go unanswered? When my miracle I've been praying for goes unanswered? Does God still get glory when your miracle doesn't happen? I've experienced both unanswered prayers and answered prayers. And back in 2013, so we're 12 years ago, we actually did a miracles series here at Central. If you were here then, you remember this, kudos to you. I don't remember what we talked about 2 weeks ago. But we did a miracle series when we were going through the book of Luke. And my mom actually got to share a testimony story with the church of a miracle that her and my dad got to witness with my brother. And so we're actually going to get to play it again for you this morning. So go ahead and check out the story.
My name is Maria Gregory. I am the mother of 5 children. Timothy is 35 years old. Timothy was born with the cord around his neck. He was blue. The doctors didn't seem to be concerned. I stayed in the hospital for 7 days, came home with another happy little boy. At 3 months, we noticed that he was not really responding in a way that we knew he should be because we could compare him with our older child. At 5 months old, we were again concerned. At this point, we knew that something could be wrong because he was not doing the things we knew he should be doing. The doctor said maybe he was a little bit slow developmentally, not to worry. At 6 months, there was a whooping cough epidemic. We admitted him into hospital for breathing problems, and when he was admitted, we asked the doctor to check up on him. We were in the hospital for 2 weeks. He recovered from whooping cough. The doctor brought us into the office to tell us that from the tests that they had done, that Timothy did have a problem. And at that point, they didn't quite know what, but they thought that he was developmentally and possibly mentally handicapped. As you can imagine, it was like a bomb. It was like a bombshell going off in our lives. So we walked away from there, not really knowing what we were going to do, where we could go. All we knew is that we had a church that we belonged to, and we knew that we could have the prayers of our friends at the church. It was a very difficult time, which caused us to be on our knees a lot, to fast a lot, because we really didn't think that this could be happening to us. This kind of things happens to other people, but it never happens to you. We used to take Tim to the doctors for doctor visits. They would tell us that he should not be held side by side and we should not have him walk. The one thing Timothy really enjoyed doing was walking. So we would hold either side of him and we would walk up and down, up and down. And the doctors kept telling us we were not to do that because it could ruin his hips and he would end up in a wheelchair. He was so happy to do that. We continued, we prayed, and we had faith. He was in a walker, and the walker was for little children, but my husband kept welding little pieces on to make the walker taller and taller as he grew. We continued this up until he was probably 6, 7 years old. I would carry him on my hip if he wasn't in the walker, and then we would hold his hand. And then one day, about 7 years old, we were walking and he was getting stronger. We could see he was getting stronger on his feet. And one day he took off and started walking on his own. And he has been walking on his own ever since.
My brother, he turns 48 this year, and he's an incredible walker. He is, this is a big miracle, right? This is a big thing that happened in our lives, and it took years. When doctors said no, my parents trusted God. Here's the thing, though. If the miracle didn't come when he was 7 years old, would my parents have still trusted God? What does that look like? Have you ever had to come to a point in your faith where you are desperately asking God, why? Why won't you heal this person? God, why did you take this person from me? Have you ever been angry at God for not doing what you so desperately ask of him? Here's the thing, church, these emotions, the anger that we feel, disappointment that we feel, you know they're not a sin, right? It's not a sin to feel these things, especially towards God. There was a quote that was shared last week, and I want to share it with you again. The only thing worse than disappointment with God is facing disappointment without God. These emotions are real. God gave them to us. But really what it is that anger and disappointment, it's what we do with those that could take us over the edge into sin. It's how we react in those things that can take it into sin. But what do we do with these big and small miracles and the things that are left with no answers? Is God the same God? We just sang this song, same God. God, I believe you're a healer. You were a healer then. You were a healer then with my brother. Are you a healer now with fill in the blank? Because some days it really doesn't feel like you're the same God. Does it come down to trust? Is that what it is? Do we trust God? Is it about trusting God? I think it's a lot easier said than it is done. So what does the Bible have to say about it? We're going to be in John chapter 5 this morning, if you want to find your way there. I say easier said than done because I think it's really easy to trust God when we see miracles happen for people and ourselves, when we feel like there's like a deserving factor. This is going to get a little uncomfortable. When we know that there's people or ourselves that have faith in God, that have relationship with God, that trust him, that have prayed for years, and when it happens, we're like, yes, God, thank you. Those are the people we have in mind when Jesus works his miracles, right? But what happens when the miracle happens to someone that we think is undeserving of God's grace? And I say undeserving, those are our words, not God's words. I know this is uncomfortable, but I think we're all aware that there are really good things that happen to not so great of people. And we think, God, that doesn't make sense. I've been faithfully praying and trusting you, and what? Why them? They don't even know you. And I know this is hard, but if we're being honest, these can be the icky parts of our hearts sometimes. Are we still trusting God? All right, let's jump into it. John 5, verse 1. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here, a great number of disabled people used to lie: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. Okay, we're gonna stop there for a moment. So we know the name of the pool Bethesda is Aramaic, which actually means the house of mercy, which is really interesting. John shares with us that a lot of disabled people used to lie there: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed, and there were these covered colonnades that would shade these people around this pool. Now, I have some pictures for you so you can put a visual to it, because I think it's important. This is no backyard pool, right? These pools were like 49 feet deep, about 360 feet wide. They were massive. I went to Israel, Palestine back in 2016 and got to visit. And these are some of the pictures that I got to take. So I just wanted to give you a visual because this scene is bizarre. How big these pools were, and just imagine there were hundreds, maybe thousands of people gathered around them. So legend had it that there was an angel that would come down into these waters. It would stir up the water, and then the first person to get into that water after the stirring happened would experience healing and would be healed from whatever they were suffering from. They would be made well. Now here's the thing, the Bible doesn't actually teach that that actually happened. It was most likely a superstition, a superstitious belief that probably arose because this pool was next to a temple. And so this superstitious belief came to be. But nevertheless, many, many sick people believed it. And when you are desperate, you tend to believe and hope in anything that will bring you hope and healing. So let's continue. Pick it back up in verse 5. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he'd been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Okay, let's stop here again. This man had suffered from a paralytic condition for 38 years. So you could say that he was a frequent flyer at the pool of Bethesda in hope of healing. And my guess is that it resulted in a lot of disappointment for him. I think this guy just lived in disappointment. But it's crazy to me because this guy never stopped hoping to be healed from being paralyzed, showing up each day to be near this pool and each day realizing that no one was going to help him into the water. Everyone was there for themselves. I have another visual in my mind. Are you guys familiar with The Hunger Games? It's a book series, a movie series. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up later. But The Hunger Games is like every man for itself, goes into these like crazy trials where it's like until death kind of thing. This is what I imagine these pools to be like with these people trying to get healed, right? No one's helping each other. Everyone's pushing each other's side, trying to get in that water. First one in gets healed, like clawing at the rocks and the sands, just trying to get in. So this image is just bizarre. The problem is this man, he didn't see that there was another way. He had a bit of a woe is me attitude. Jesus asked him, "Do you want to get well?" And he didn't even really answer him. Did you notice this? He just starts making excuses. He was focused on this one way of healing. He talks about the water and no one can help him. What can I do? There's nothing to do. Just ignoring Jesus' question. Like knowing Jesus, I just imagine him being like, "Hey, I asked you a question that you didn't answer." You know when you're like talking to your kids, you ask them a question, they either avoid it or they're not listening, and you're like, "Hey, asked you a question, do you want to get well?" But to the man's defense, he didn't know that this was Jesus. I think too, because he was so consumed with his own misery that he couldn't see Jesus. He didn't see that maybe, just maybe, there could be another way. Now we get to this part where it says Jesus saw him lying there. Have you ever wondered, why did Jesus see him? Like there are hundreds and thousands of people around this pool. And this wasn't a moment where Jesus was like, "Hey, come all of you, I will heal everyone." Like this wasn't a big healing session. Jesus just saw this one man. Why? Why him? And I think our answer comes in the following verses. Jesus had learned that he'd been there for a really long time. And this hope he was clinging to, this desperation, this need for a miracle, Jesus showed up. But this man was looking in all the wrong places by being at this pool. Now, we know this to be true. This is a historical thing of people looking for God in all the wrong places. We see it back in Genesis 3 in the fall of man, humanity looking in all the wrong places for God when he's right in front of us, speaking to us. But we're too busy to listen, or we have a one-track mind, very much like this man by the pool. I think so often we look for answers and miracles in the wrong places, taking matters into our own hands when we don't like the answer, when we feel like God isn't listening. Jesus wanted to miraculously meet this man's need. He asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Have you ever been so desperate that all you can do is truly see Jesus and just know him because you're so desperate for something? Jesus asks him this question to truly hear his heart for wanting a need to be healed. I'm gonna say something, it's a big statement, but a lot of people can be sick but don't want to be healed. And I'm not just talking about physical sickness. A lot of people can be sick but don't want to be healed. This man had tunnel vision. He played the woe is me card. He gave up, no one's gonna help me. He couldn't see past himself. And church, I'll be honest, it's really hard to help people when they don't want to help themselves. Jesus wanted to see if this man truly wanted to be healed by asking him. And I think the question that parallels, do you want to get well, is Jesus saying, do you trust me? And here's the thing, the crazy thing. This man, I don't think he did. He didn't. Why? Verse 8, let's pick it up there. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat and walk. At once, the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath. And so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. But he replied, well, the man who made me well said to me, pick up your mat and walk. So they asked him, well, who is this fellow who told you to pick? This is exactly how I feel like this is going on with their voices. Who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk? The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. But later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, see, you're well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. Okay, Jesus' response is hilarious. Jesus is a funny guy. Because the man didn't even answer the question properly, I imagine Jesus just like rolling his eyes, right? All right, dude, just get up, get your mat, go walk, you're healed. I know it's the Sabbath, just do it, right? Like so frustrated with him. And then he just leaves, bye. Like, I'm out of here. He just walks away. No more has been said by Jesus. And the fact that Jesus doesn't say anything is actually really weird. Why? Why is this weird? In most of Jesus' healings, if not all of them, he has these famous words, your faith has healed you. Your faith has saved you. We see it in at least 4 different accounts in the New Testament. The blind beggar, the leper, the woman who bled, the prostitute that washed Jesus' feet with her tears. Your faith has saved you. Your faith has healed you. All these people had faith that Jesus would heal them, and he did. But this paralyzed man, he didn't even know who Jesus was. And this is what I mean by saying he didn't trust him. How are you supposed to trust someone when you don't know them? You guys know this in our personal lives. How do you trust people? How do you trust God if you don't know him? This is why when we follow Jesus, we talk about a relationship with Jesus. The reason we can have a relationship with God is because there's Jesus. We have to grow in a relationship with him so we know how to trust him, so we know who we're trusting. This man wasn't waiting for him. This man wasn't praying. He was so dead set on a superstition to bring him healing. He didn't have faith. He had tunnel vision, one-track mind. So why? I know I got a lot of why questions. I'm sorry. This is a peek into my relationship with Jesus because I ask a lot of why questions, and I think I give him a run for his money a lot of the times. Why did Jesus extend his grace to this man who was very undeserving of it, who didn't even know who Jesus was, who didn't even deserve it, who didn't have a relationship? Here we are, church, getting something we don't deserve. Grace. One of the most important things in following Jesus that separates us from all other religions is this idea of grace. Jesus is everything that we don't deserve. And yet that day that he died on the cross, grace was extended to us. Do you know that you can't earn it? Nothing you do will earn it. Why? Because it's already been given to you. Grace is a free gift. This man experienced the grace of Jesus in this miracle, which is why Jesus didn't say, your faith has saved you, because it didn't. What did? Jesus' grace saved him, healed him. Jesus' grace was the miracle. And man, if that's not good news, church, I don't know what is. But I have to ask, again with my questions, do these types of miracles, do they make us angry? When someone else gets that promotion at work, when you've worked your butt off to get that, you know that you are deserving of it, but someone else gets it who's not great at their job, does that make you angry? When someone else is healed, but you've been praying for years for healing in your family or for your friend, but someone else gets healed who doesn't even know you, that isn't gonna be changed. When someone else has that baby, and we've been trying for so long, could God be asking us, do you trust me when it doesn't go your way? Or someone less deserving gets a miracle? Again, our words, not his. The last part of these verses is so interesting, as these Pharisees chose to not see Jesus for who he was, for who he is. They chose to see right past this miracle of this man being able to walk, and were so concerned about the fact that it happened on the Sabbath, a day of rest. And I think Jesus wanted to prove a point on the Sabbath by even asking the man to what? To pick up your mat, go and walk. He wanted him to work purposely, intentionally on the Sabbath. But isn't this crazy? A paralyzed man just walked because of Jesus' words, and yet the Pharisees saw right past it. They were so caught up in the laws and the rules. And I think, man, this is such a bummer. It makes me so angry when I read about the Pharisees, because I'm like, guys, you missed it. How could you not see what God is doing? Why are you so consumed with your own agenda? Or you're so worried about someone else's that all you're doing is seeing here to the left and to the right, and you're forgetting to look here. And I think I get so angry because I know deep down that I have a lot in common with the Pharisees. And that's a tough pill to swallow. How many times has God shown up in our lives, specifically in really small ways, and we've shown him zero recognition, zero gratitude for what he's doing because we're so caught up with our own agenda, or even worse, we're concerned about someone else's. Or that maybe it was a coincidence, or it wasn't how we wanted him to answer our prayers, so we forget what he's actually doing in our lives. Sometimes, if not most of the time, we're not too far off from the Pharisees. Now, does this mean that everything is spiritual? You guys have ever met those people that just like make everything overly spiritual? Some of you are like, wait, that is me. I'm not gonna make fun of you, I promise, just a little bit. So, but like those people that are overly spiritual, like for instance, when you're, oh man, this is just a funny one, but like when you're eating like really unhealthy food, like big fat greasy burger, right? And like you're with someone, this has happened to me, where someone's like, can we just like, let's just pray before we eat? I was like, love it. And it's like, bless this food to our bodies. Y'all, Jesus can turn water into wine. I do not think he can take that grease out of that burger for you in that moment, right? Like just everything is overly spiritual. Or you, and bless your souls if you guys are like this. Just like if you're over at someone's house, you like use the restroom, you go to the bathroom and like You're doing your business and you like look over and there's just like Bible verses in the bathroom that are like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you're like, I'm just trying to get this greasy burger out of my system, right? But just like Bible verse, and you're like, I have Bible verses all over my house. It's fine. You are great. You make us less spiritual people think about our lives more, all right? So you keep being you and you own it. But does this mean everything is spiritual? I've shared with you all before that I don't believe that everything happens for a reason. Okay, don't call me names, don't throw vegetables at me, let me explain. What I do believe with everything that I am, everything that happens in this life, all the joyful things, all the good things, all the really hard things, all the really bad things, what I do believe is that I believe that God can be glorified through all of it. Through all of it. The problem with me saying everything happens for a reason, for me personally in my faith, it implies that God wants me to suffer, that he wants bad things to happen. And I don't think that's true. I don't think God enjoys seeing us suffer. I don't think he wants those things to happen. Now, the difference is he promises that it will happen, right? We read that in Scripture. Paul tells us that you will suffer, but I don't think it fills God's cup when we do. I believe God can be glorified through all of it. Well, you heard this incredible miracle of my brother at the beginning, a huge testament of faith that I got to be a witness and hear my parents and what they went through. Well, now, on the other side, a few months ago, my baby nephew, he's 2, almost 2, from one of my other brothers, him and his wife, and he got a diagnosis that's not great. He's got some organs, kidneys, bladder, that they found out weren't functioning well. And his future looks really scary. He's gonna grow up having to take care of these organs in a really hard way. I don't want this for his life. He's 2. He doesn't deserve this. His journey has looked like a lot of unanswered prayers, a lot of non-miracles. And it's heartbreaking to see his pain, my brother and his wife's pain. Here's what I've learned, church. Miracles are really hard. And some of the most common questions we ask are, God, I can see you doing this for someone else. Why won't you do this for me? Why won't you save this person? God, why won't you heal my nephew? I know you can. I saw it with my brother. And the hard part is I can't answer these questions. No one can. And I've realized it's not that I don't believe he can, because I do. Because of who Jesus is, because he's the Son of God, because he's the Savior of the world, because he offered us grace and mercy, because that day on the cross changed everything, because he died and defeated the grave and rose again, and because he's so in love with all of us. I know all of that to be true because of who he is, knowing that I'm a changed person because of that. And if someone like him is gonna die on the cross for someone like me who is broken and messy and messes up a lot, and if someone like him is gonna die on the cross for a paralyzed man that didn't even know him, then you bet all I have left to do is to trust him. And because of all of that, church, I believe he can, and I'm gonna trust him if he doesn't. I believe he can, and I'm gonna trust him if he doesn't. I believe he can heal my nephew, and I'm gonna trust him if he doesn't. But you bet I'm gonna be angry. I'm gonna be really disappointed. But I'm gonna choose to trust him. Because here's the thing, a life of not trusting God, that looks a lot more scary and a lot more lonely. Now, some of you, like me, are struggling. You're sitting in an unanswered prayer. You're sitting in, God, I don't know if you're listening. You're sitting in, God, I've been praying just for so long. I need a miracle. I need healing, whether it's personally, whether it's for someone else. And I want you to know that God sees you. He sees your pain. He sees your mess. Church, will you give him your anger? Will you give him your disappointments? Because he wants to hear from you. He wants to know that you're angry because he can deal with all of that. The song that we sang at the beginning, I'll be honest, I have a really hard time with those words. Every time it comes on, when we play it, we sing it on a Sunday morning, I always take a deep breath before that song. So I'm like, okay, same God. God, do I believe that you are the same God, that you were then, that you are now? Because again, this is tough. We're gonna close out service with just singing a few more of those lines, not the whole song, just a few. And some of you need to change your posture in worship this morning in a way that you're just ready to talk to God, that you're ready to make that statement of, God, I do believe you're the same God. I believe you can, but I'm gonna trust you if you don't. Maybe that needs to be your cry this morning. And I bet he's really ready to hear from you. Oh, let's pray. God, I'm grateful for stories like Jesus turning water into wine because we can learn from all of it. But then, God, we get to these moments. We read about these miracles, about your goodness and who you are. And God, they're really hard because there's a lot of things that we don't understand about following you. But God, I pray for our hearts this morning, for all the people in our spaces online that are just sitting there feeling a little lost. God, I pray that we would continue to grow in relationship with you so that we can trust you. God, that if there's someone in this place that hasn't felt or known your grace, God, may they know that this morning. And God, we trust and we believe that you are the same God. Because we know you can. And God, we know it's gonna be really hard, but we're gonna trust you if you don't. But meet us in that place here this morning as we walk out those doors, God, in our cars, in our homes, in our workplace, with our families. Meet us where we're at. Because the life of not following you, of not trusting you, that looks really scary. So help us to trust you and know you more, God. God, thank you for who you are. Thank you for changing everything so that we can experience the love of Jesus and the miracles, big and small, that you give us each and every day. We love you so much. We give you our praise and our worship, and it's in your name that we pray. Everyone said?